Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to Shtark Tank, the podcast about the challenges and opportunities of being a Ben Torah in the workforce. This week, I want to share career advice from the Netziv. The Torah is our guide for living a meaningful life and navigating its dilemmas. When it comes to putting up a chalent or calculating the proper time for davening, I know where to look for answers. But what about my career? Where is the Torah's guidance about that? There are certainly many sources that shed light on the world of work, but they are scattered in various places. Some of those sources were gathered by Aaron Lapiansky in his Sefer Ben Torah for Life, but there are still many more. When preparing a chabura last month for Parshas Bereishis, I realized that the Netziv's commentary on that parsha includes no less than 5 crucial ideas that have direct relevance to our careers. Even though he was writing 150 years ago in Poland, it feels like he's speaking directly to me today. Before we jump in, I just wanted to let you know that this episode is also available in text format on shtarktank.org. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. Last week, we had a piece written by a Shtark Tank listener who explains how a machlokas between 2 gedolim from hundreds of years ago helped him make a key career decision. So please head over to shtarktank.org and subscribe today. Now, here are 5 big career ideas from the Netziv on Parshas Bereishis. Number 1, is work a curse? It definitely feels that way sometimes. Angry bosses, demanding clients, endless deadlines, and financial pressures, just to name a few. Many people would say that work is a curse, and on the surface, the Torah seems to agree. The pasuk says, avrech, bezעת apiך תאכל. After Adam's sin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, the ground is cursed for you, and by the sweat of your brow shall you eat bread. But the Netziv offers a different read. He points out that the word ba'avurecha actually means for your benefit. Ba'avurecha, for your benefit. The pasuk isn't saying that the ground was cursed because of you, but for you. Hashem made the world this way to benefit mankind. Now we understand how this pasuk doesn't contradict the many sources in Chazal, like in Pirkei Avos, Avodas Hashem, and in Maseches Brachos, Gadol Hanena Me'Gia Kapav, Yoter Me'er Shamayim. None of these sources contradict the pasuk that says Arura Adama Bavarecha, because work is still a bracha. The curse is on the land for the benefit of man. Man accesses the bracha of work through the curse on the earth. Now, how is this a benefit? Because effort, work, and responsibility keep a person grounded, focused, and productive. They help us contribute to society and live meaningful lives. So yes, the ground was cursed, but the curse itself is what allows us to experience the blessing of work. But what about my boss yelling at me, my client driving me crazy, and all the other stressors of life at the office? I like to think about it like parenting. Raising kids is one of the greatest blessings in life, but it also comes with plenty of sleepless nights, stress, and frustration. That doesn't make it any less of a blessing. It's just part of the reality. The truth is, all meaningful areas of life have some sort of built-in tension. A gym where you don't sweat isn't going to build any muscle. And the IKEA effect teaches us that we have a hard time really appreciating something that we don't put in some effort of our own to build it. Work is the same way. It's a gift that includes hard work and challenges. And just to add one more point on this, mindset is really important. If you tell yourself that work is a curse, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. In your mind, you will magnify all of the stressors and will overlook the various blessings. Maybe an interesting person that you might get to work with, a new skill that you're able to build, or a chance to make a Kiddush Hashem. So, is work a curse? According to the Netziv, no. Number 2, did Hashem plan on creating Bahlabatim? Adam's sin changed human life. According to some sources in Chazal, before the sin, man lived in a purely spiritual reality. Afterwards, he was drawn into the physical. It's easy to see that shift as a downgrade, parallel to leaving the exalted world of Kolel to become a simple Bahlabus. I once spoke with a bochur who said exactly that. I was spending Shabbos at a certain yeshiva in Yerushalayim over 10 years ago, and this guy told me that he only wanted to learn in Kolel, and he would only go out to work if absolutely forced to. I can remember it like it was yesterday, because he mentioned that even working as a malamed or a rav of some sorts is also work, and he was going to avoid that at all costs. He saw any type of work as a step down from the pure reality of Kolel. When I asked him why, he said, we're supposed to return to the level of Adam HaRishon before the sin. Pure ruchnius, no physical involvement. But the Netziv offers a completely different perspective. This world was created to glorify Hashem. To do that, man needs to be connected to both heaven and earth, to tap into spirituality and bring it down into society. Humanity needs both dimensions to fulfill its mission. Then the Netziv writes something remarkable. If Adam had never sinned, what would have happened? How would spiritual Adam have brought God's presence into the physical world? How would the tachas ever come to be? The answer is such a chiddush that I had to reread it several times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Afterwards, I had to still send it to a couple friends just to confirm that I wasn't absolutely crazy. The Netziv writes that God planned on creating a second person. Adam the first would represent the spiritual, and the second person that was created, he would connect to the physical. Once Adam sinned and was forced to balance both of these roles within himself, there was no longer a need for that second man to be created. That means that the world of work was not a mistake or an afterthought or a breakdown in the system. It was part of the plan all along. The sin just changed how we access that part of life, not whether or not it should exist. If Adam hadn't sinned, God would have created the Bahlabus anyway. So, did Hashem plan on creating Bahlabatim? According to the Netziv, yes. Number 3, how do I handle relationships with secular people? Transitioning from yeshiva to the workforce is a major culture shock. One day you're surrounded by like-minded chevra focused on Torah, growth, and shared values. The next day, you're surrounded by people who act differently, talk differently, and dress differently. And it's not just different. These differences are often sharply at odds with our core values of Kedusha. Peer pressure is a basic human phenomenon. We naturally imitate those around us. In yeshiva, that's an asset. At work, it can be a liability. Besides for the basic psychology involved, the Rambam writes this clearly in Hilchos Deos. So, how should we think about our relationships with other people at work? On the one hand, we need those relationships for teamwork and connection. On the other hand, we don't want to absorb language, attitudes, and behaviors that pull us off the course. The Netziv says that Sefer Bereishis is essentially about this very struggle. In his introduction, he explains why Chazal called it Sefer HaYashar, the book of the straight. The Avos lived among corrupt societies, yet they found a way to engage with the world while staying true to themselves. Sodom made the modern city of Las Vegas look tame by comparison, but yet Avram didn't isolate or boycott everyone around him. He tried to help others however he could, but without compromising on his own values. That's the model. It's not easy, and Netziv doesn't give a step-by-step plan, but he reminds us that this tension isn't new. Living among people with different values without losing our own goes way back. It's as old as Avram Avinu. And not only does it go back to Avram Avinu, but this is the topic. Chazal named the book Sefer HaYashar because the book is there to show us that this is something that we need to learn from the Avos about how to find the right balance and be able to straddle both concepts of both retaining our values, but also being engaged with other people who are very, very different. Number 4, is it possible to be spiritual at work? We usually think of spirituality as something that happens in a Beis Medrash or a shul. Davening, learning, and moments of inspiration happen in the house of Hashem. But can we find spirituality at the office as well? The Netziv says yes. He points to the very beginning of Bereishis, where we learn that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put Adam in Gan Eden le'ovda u'lishomra, to work it and to guard it. This is before the sin. Even in Gan Eden, man had work to do. The Netziv explains that the words le'ovda and lishomra refer not only to physical tasks, but also to spiritual service as well. The fact that the same words carry dual meaning teaches us that the two go together. The Torah's message is that human effort and divine blessing go hand in hand. From the start, Hashem designed the world to run on both. Our avodah in the office and our Avodas Hashem in the Beis Medrash. Both matter, both are holy, and both are part of one system of le'ovda, l'shomra. When we understand that, our davening, learning, and working become part of one unified system. So, is it possible to access spirituality at work? Not only is it possible, but we're doing it all the time. The life of a Ben Torah, who on the one hand davens and learns and invests himself spiritually, but also does his ishtadlus, those are the two elements of le'ovda l'shamra that are key functions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creation. Number 5, can I live a life of luxury? How much should I actually work? For some people, it's not even a choice. They just need to make ends meet. But for others, the question is real. Suppose you're choosing between two jobs, one with longer hours and higher pay, and another that's calmer but more modest. Reminds me almost of the debate we had with Review to Helper a few weeks ago. What should you do? It's tempting to assume that the Torah says to work less, earn less, and learn more. And the Mesilas Yesharim in chapter 5 seems to point in that direction. But the Netziv offers a more nuanced view. He explains that Cain and Hevel represented two different life paths. Cain worked the fields to provide food for everyone, basic sustenance. Hevel, who didn't need to work for basic survival, became a shepherd, producing milk, wool, and other luxuries. So, who was right? The Netziv says, it depends. Most people need to work full-time, both to contribute and to avoid boredom. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned to Hevel's korban, because Hevel is the path of most people. You work a lot, even more than your basic necessities. But there are exceptions. People who can live simply and dedicate more time to spiritual pursuits. That's great if you know yourself and you're cut out for it. That is why Hashem tells Cain that if you do good, you will rise. There's potential within Cain's approach to be successful, but it's not for everyone. And I'll add that you also need to know your time in history. Each generation faces its own pressures and realities. Hashem placed us in this world with these norms. Our job is to live up to Torah values within that reality, not to compare ourselves to other eras or other people. For most of the last 2,000 years, Jews lived in abject poverty. The wealth and comfort that we have access to today would have been unheard of for our ancestors. So should a person try to avoid going overboard with luxuries? Obviously, yes. But is a person forced to live a Spartan existence and that's the only way of Torah? Absolutely not. So, how much should a person work? Depends on the person, but working to make more than your basic necessities is the approach of Cain, and it's a very legitimate one as well. So let's sum it up. Number 1, work is not a curse. The ground was cursed for our benefit. Number 2, God planned to create a man who would engage with the world and would go out to work. But after sin, it was no longer necessary. If Adam hadn't sinned, God would have created an extra person, a second person that would represent the values of Bahlabus. Number 3, Bereishis is about living amongst people with different values and staying straight. It's called Sefer Yashar because Avram and the other Avos stayed Yashar despite the fact they were engaged with people that had very hostile values. Number 4, spiritual and physical work are connected. Both are necessary to survive. Both are part of one system of creation. Number 5, career choices depend on who you are and the world you live in. There is room for working a lot, working more. There's also room for working less. Everyone has to know themselves, their family, and their time in history. If you enjoy this episode and want to hear more like it, I'd love to know. You can leave a comment on Spotify or Apple, email me at yakovwolf@gmail.com, send me a message on LinkedIn, or join the Quiet WhatsApp group and find my number and send me a WhatsApp. Your feedback is really, really important to me. Until next time, keep on steiging, Chevra.